Hi, everyone. It's Carrie.
I'm Cindy. Welcome to CNC Insights with Cindy and Carrie.
Welcome to Carrie On Accessibility.
Welcome back to Seeing Blind.
He was surprised, which I don't understand why, but he was surprised at the fact that blind testers gave better feedback.
Provide as an accessibility tester the full package. Finally, it's a positive spin on something that I feel like our culture has really put down. You ready, Carrie?
Actually, let me just take one sip of my coffee, to bolster me.
Hey, welcome back to CNC Insights with Carrie from Carrie On Accessibility and myself, Cindy from Seeing Blind. Today, we're going to be continuing on our conversation from the previous episode and dive deeper into the field of accessibility testing and providing user experience feedback to companies and organizations, developers in the tech and retail sectors, and talk about those positions that actually are gainful employment, you can make pretty good money at, and those surveys and different studies and research things that we might participate in for the betterment of our community and overall culture and development of new things, but may not be compensated for. So we're going to dive into that, talk about it, and share our experience because Carrie, you and I, we're both accessibility testers. We've been doing this for well over a year now, almost 2, I think, for you. Is that right?
Yes, it's been more than a year. I think it's going to come up on 2 years now. And it's definitely an area where there is a lot of growth and a lot of potential. And I just see this job opportunities cropping up everywhere, left and right. And I think that it is the time and this is the place for us as a community to really move forward and be able to push accessibility forward.
I totally agree. I totally agree with that. And this is like a fast booming position that I think the beauty of it is it values our disability and the assets and the skills that we have to develop as individuals with disabilities. It values those adaptations and those skills that we gain in a way that is employable. It is compensated and it's valued by employers, and they're starting to see that. And I'm so thankful for it. We're going to talk a little bit more about that and finding value in your skills as an individual with a disability. We're going to dive real deep into that here later on in today's discussion. But for now, let's just lay the foundation. What is an accessibility tester? What are all the different types of little subsects of this field out there, and what are some of the certifications that you can get? Just how do you get your foot sort of through the door, so to speak, and getting started here? So Carrie, you and I, we both started out providing user experience feedback with Fable. Yeah, you were the one that actually referred me to Fable a year and a half ago, and it's been such a blessing ever since.
Absolutely. So I've actually been doing accessibility testing for a long time. And if you really think about it, we all have as a community. When we pick up a device and we're using those accessibility tools and features, we're basically doing accessibility testing all the time. We may not be providing feedback all the time. We may not be sharing what are our challenges and what's good about a certain feature, but we are testing things all the time. Fable, actually, a friend of mine reached out to me telling me about this opportunity. And like you mentioned, it's a way to frame assistive technology users in a positive light, and just by our experience and how we use technology, how we use these features, and what works for us and what doesn't. You don't need to have a certification. You don't need to know a lot of technicalities and no knowledge of HTML or CSS or coding, which is a very good thing. Otherwise, I would never have been able to start in this path. It's really about getting your foot into the door, learning your assistive technology, and then just being able to communicate what your experience is.
Yes, I think a lot of companies, that's exactly what they're seeking. So, yeah, you don't have to be a computer science degree engineer. You just have to know your assistive technology, have great knowledge and experience with it to be able to provide your user experience with these new developments, new prototypes, new rollouts of different features on existing platforms. And Fable is just one of many companies out there that are looking for contractors, just like, hey, do you have any kind of impairment or disability that requires you to use assistive technology? And if so, hey, we value your feedback and we are going to compensate you for you providing that service. That's how you and I got our foot in the door. And
Mhm.
it's so funny because when I started it, I knew kind of what it was, but I didn't realize just how much it would take root in my heart and how much I would love this job. It's really cultivated this passion and I've been pursuing it. I'm excited about all the things that I've learned. I'm diving into it deep. I'm going as far as I can down this career path and becoming, hopefully, later down the road, a web accessibility specialist. There are certifications that you can pursue if providing the user experience feedback, if you find yourself really enjoying it and really wanting to dive deeper into it, then going the full route of getting those certifications is definitely the way to go. And positions are popping up right and left. And I think what separates us from the non disabled community is that we're the double edged sword. You'll have the same technical skills, the same knowledge of guidelines and legislation and rules and all that stuff, but you're also coming at it from someone who depends on assistive technology. So you're going to be able to provide that user experience on top of the technical skills. So
Mhm.
it's like we're going to be that double edged sword that employers are really going to see that value and asset in.
Absolutely. Right now, I'm currently beta testing a program, and I spoke to the program manager, and he was speaking about how they have both sighted and blind testers. And he was surprised, which I don't understand why, but he was surprised at the fact that blind testers gave better feedback, more complete feedback. They explored the program more and they made more experimentations, and it makes a lot of sense. We care about the product because it's something for us. And
Right.
we are the ones who are going to be using these products. And so it makes all the sense in the world to be testing with assistive technology users. And right now, a lot of developers and companies, they might be teaching some of their developers and researchers how to use a screen reader and how to use other AT as well. But if you don't actually need it and depend on it daily, you really don't know what the experience is actually going to be like. Now, you should still do that because that can still benefit just from some of the technical side, but you really need people who depend on this.
I totally agree. It's that contextual experience. Sometimes you can check all the boxes as a developer and designer, as someone who, yeah, I can test it to make sure it's accessible for screen reader users and they can know all the logistics of it. But unless you ask someone who's actually an assistive technology user and can understand the full picture in context and how it
Mhm.
all comes together and the full user experience from that perspective, I mean, yeah, that's the unique approach that we are able to provide that non disabled, they're just going to be able to really address the technical piece and not that contextual side of it. And that is something to really celebrate that finally, okay, the disabled community, there's something here. I mean, that's one thing that's really fired me up, girl, I have to say, is that just finally, I have something I could put on my resume that nonchalantly discloses that, yes, I am an assistive technology user. I have an impairment. I need these skills and they are valued. I am able able to provide expert knowledge on screen readers, on
Mhm.
magnifiers, and all of this stuff, and provide as an accessibility tester the full package. I'm excited about that because finally it's a positive spin on something that I feel like our culture has really put down, and there's been a lot of negative discrimination on
Mhm.
throughout history.
Absolutely. And I think now many people are more willing to listen. They value what we have to say. And just by working with researchers and working with developers, a lot of them just don't understand it. They don't
Hmm.
understand how we use the tech. They don't understand why we need it the way that we're asking for. And to be able to communicate that to somebody who doesn't know but is willing is really fulfilling because we know that it not only helps us, but
Yes.
it's going to help so many others
Yeah.
in our community that use the same assistive technology and will provide a better, a richer experience for everybody.
Yes, I've done this so many times and I absolutely love it when I sense that light bulb is going off. I know you feel like it's just 5 extra hoops you're going to have to jump through, and this is major inconvenience, and you're going to have to sacrifice design and all this stuff just to accommodate the disabled community on one more thing. And I know they come at it with this just negative bah humbug, oh, this is just extra work kind of attitude. And I love it when I educate them on, well, actually, no, you don't have to sacrifice design to make your website more accessible because of, X, Y, and Z, and go into it and explain why it's actually going to behoove you to do this on the beginning front end of
Mhm.
and include us in the process because you are going to have a much better product in the end that you can be proud of, and that's going to include more people, which means potentially more money, more content, more consumers, and reaching a broader base. And that's a win-win. And
Yes.
so it's like you have to help them reframe it in their mind and help them understand why it's important and what they're going to gain in return. Because it's not about what they're going to be sacrificing just to check another box, it's about what they're going to be gaining
Mhm.
when they check another box.
And it's also the fact that when you improve accessibility, it's not just helping AT users.
Hmm.
There are so many other areas where it will help other people. For example, if you provide closed captioning, right, which is part of accessibility,
Right?
it's not just going to help people who are deaf.
Exactly.
It's going to help people that may not know the language. It'll also help people that can read content better and process it better than listening to something.
Right?
I mean, there are so many areas where helping and improving the accessibility in one area will help across the board in so many different areas as well.
Right. It kind of harkens back to that classic example that we all hear that, like, oh, when they finally started making curb cutouts and
Mhm.
sidewalks,
And elevators.
yeah, for wheelchair users, all of a sudden they're like, oh, wait, but this helps everyone with a stroller. And this
Mhm.
helps everyone who's carting around, FedEx boxes and deliveries and shipments. And actually, it ends up serving everybody in some
Mhm.
positive way, not just the original people that, stood up and advocated for it. And I think that's the beautiful thing about accessibility. So, if you wanted to dive more deeply into it, beyond just providing user experience, let's talk a little bit about Section 508, which is part of the DHS Department of Health Services, that's more government based approach towards accessibility standards, and WCAG. Do you want to shoot and explain WCAG to everybody real quick, just for those who may not be familiar?
Yes, WCAG is WCAG, which stands for Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. WCAG are not laws. These are guidelines when you're developing a product and developing it that you follow, whether it's making sure there's closed captioning, making sure you have headings, making sure you have a structured layout to your web page or to your app. And these are what you need to follow to make things accessible.
Yeah, and I know as recently as 2018, they rolled out with 17 new criteria. I think there's currently 78 success criterias currently, I believe, with the current WCAG standards. I think that's the beautiful thing, that these are guidelines for web accessibility. And you can meet every single 78 success criteria and still have a non-accessible website because of that contextual experience. It's their guidelines. They're not going to completely give you a roadmap to a fully successful experience.
Yes, and then there are 3 levels, A, double A, and triple A, and the standard or average is double A, and they say that the triple A would be going that extra mile, sort of, but you could reach triple A, like you said, Cindy, and it's still not a great experience.
Yeah,
Because compliance doesn't equal accessibility.
exactly.
This is a great way of quantifying how accessible a product is using those success criteria.
Mm-hmm.
But it's more than that. Accessibility is so much more than that. And that's why user testing and user experience research is just so important.
Exactly. They're all pieces to build the overall puzzle. So that's WCAG. Now, Section 508, it's an adaptation of the Rehabilitation Act, and it's, government-based. It refers to the procurement laws that basically says Section 508 is for anyone, private companies, anyone providing products or services to the government has to meet their standards and expectations of accessibility. And so that's Section 508. And it is based on WCAG. There is lots and lots of overlap, but there is its own certification as well. The Department of Homeland Security, the DHS Trusted Tester Training Program. It is currently free through the U.S. government. I can't say that it will remain so. You never know. I don't want to kind of box that in. So I'm just going to throw that disclaimer out there. Currently, as of today, it is a free accessibility certification you can pursue, though it is quite an intensive program. It's not something that you're going to be able to probably complete in a month or so. It might take you several, a minimum of 80 hours, I believe, is what people average. Yeah, so that is definitely going to help anyone who's wanting to pursue and help businesses, organizations with any kind of procurement and meeting any kind of contract requirements if they are working one-on-one with a government on any level or capacity. And so that's the difference between the two. They're very much addressing the same types of guidelines and issues and accessibility. One is just more geared for the government, and the other is just more general web accessibility based.
Yes. Currently, Cindy and I are actually pursuing a certification called the CPAC,
Yeah.
which stands for Certified Professional in Accessibility Core Competencies. So try to say that 5 times really quickly.
Mouthful, right?
And that is organized by the IAAP, which is also a mouthful, but it stands for International Association of Accessibility Professionals.
Mm-hmm.
And the CPAC is the fundamentals of accessibility. Actually, a great resource is DQ University.
Yeah.
And they have courses to prepare you for the CPAC, as well as a lot of other courses, all talking about WCAG and just accessibility, document accessibility, and a lot of other things as well. And even on the technical side. So if you want to learn things like ARIA and more technical side of web accessibility, they also have that. And one great thing is they have a scholarship. So for people who have disabilities, because they do run in the hundreds, each course is a couple $100s. And I just love the fact that they provide that scholarship for those with disabilities and giving us opportunities in this field.
Yes, with that scholarship, all of these courses become free. And even if you're not interested in becoming an accessibility tester or user experience feedback provider, you can just still sign up for the scholarship and go ahead and take a course just for your own personal improvement, how to make an email or a PDF document, or just simple basic things in your own career that it may be outside of accessibility, but you want to make sure that you're compliant and you're doing the right thing for yourself or for everybody else.
We need to lead by example.
Exactly. Definitely pursue that resource, even if this is maybe not in your wheelhouse, because it's everyone's responsibility to make sure that whatever you're creating, you're meeting those needs of your culture, your peoples. I mean, it could be a family member or a friend who's disabled and you've never even thought, oh, I'm sending them an email, and it never dawns on you that, oh, I'm sending them an attachment that they can't even access. So yeah, take that initiative. Go ahead, improve your education skills. And a lot of those courses also count for continuing education credits as well,
Mhm.
and a lot of other disciplines. But just to generalize and wrap up today's conversation, Carrie, one thing that we kind of touched on earlier that really just, I can't even conceptualize it into words right now because I'm just so happy and I'm encouraged and I'm just excited. I just want everybody to get on board because to me, this is really changing the narrative in my own heart and mind of how I view my disability in a professional setting.
Mhm.
As a professional with a disability, I don't want to feel that hesitation to disclose that I'm legally blind. I don't want to be concerned like, okay, is this employer going to see me as, are they going to diminish my ability as soon as I tell them that I'm visually impaired?
Hmm.
I don't want that. I want finally to be recognized as, my disability actually gives me a lot of positives, a lot of strengths that a non disabled person will never develop. Let's highlight those. Let's give value to those and shed some light on that and have our resumes reflect that in a way that shows our competency and our confidence and our value as disabled employees.
Absolutely. And I think so often we get bogged down and discouraged because we feel like we can't do this, we can't do that. There's so many things that we
That
can't
imposter
do.
syndrome. Yes.
Or we can't do anymore because we've lost more vision. A lot of the time, we're so drowned out by all these negatives. And I think our community is so good at adapting. We find ways of getting things done. And
Yes.
that is a huge asset that we need to use, and we need to use it as leverage.
Hmm.
And I think this is a step in that direction of just flipping that script.
Yeah.
And what we used to see and what the culture and the society used to think that was the negative side, let's flip that. And now this is a benefit. This is something good and this is something positive.
That's right. A non disabled person can say, yeah, I'm a creative thinker.
Mhm.
Well, I can look at them and say, oh, trust me, honey. I got that box triple checked. I mean, I creative think and I have to adapt on the fly
Yes.
like a pro. And that is a skill that a lot of employers really value, but we diminish it. A lot of the times I feel like we don't even put it on our resume as something that is an asset. It's a strength. That's something that we should be proud of.
We don't think about it. It's something we do all the time, and we don't think about it as a skill. We don't see it that way. It's because we have to do it all the time. And so for us, it loses that value. But we are so unique in that way that it's such an asset to organizations. This is just, I think, how we need to think about it. And we need to change the way we think of ourselves and our capabilities.
Amen. And I think it really does start with just challenging yourself of looking at your resume and then think about everything that you've had to learn and adapt and all the things that you do differently. Doing things differently, like we said, that's not a negative.
Mhm.
So how can you phrase it on a resume that is positive, that flips that script, that changes that negative narrative into a positive? It highlights it as something to be valued. You're able to provide experience. You are able to be a board member on your
Mhm.
equity, diversity, and inclusion committee to really bring disabled perspective from the community with your own experience and being plugged in with your community. Like you're able to serve so many different capacities that organizations are really starting to home into. They're really starting to understand that equity, diversity, and inclusion is big and people are paying attention. Accessibility, too, is lumped in with it as well. And so, how you can word that professionally on your resume that values those skills. If you've learned Braille, dude, put it on your resume. I had someone the other day tell me, they were like, hey, I'm looking at your resume and do you happen to know Braille? Because that would really set you apart from other applicants. This was a mentor of mine who who's been in the accessibility field for decades. And I was like, yeah, yes, I went through the Hadley's Braille for Everyday Use program, and I do know uncontracted Braille. She's like, that counts for something. That is a skill that people, believe it or not, see value in it, but it's diminished. And people don't even think to put it on their resume. So find little gold nuggets like that.
Braille is definitely another topic we need to explore in a future episode.
Amen. Amen. So, yes, my friends, make sure you've hit all the like and the subscribes and the follows and all the things that engages with today's episode. If you'd like to hear more from Cindy and Carrie on CNC Insights, make sure you hit all those good buttons for us. And that'll also let us know you'd like to hear more about Braille and just life with a disability tips or hacks or whatever. Feel free to give Jeff a note if you have any special requests on blind abilities, what you'd like to hear from us, what topics you would like us to cover in the future. We're very, very excited and honored to be here on Blind Abilities.
And if you want to hear more from both me and Cindy, you can always follow us on our channels and our social media. And you can find me, Carrie On Accessibility, and Cindy, Seeing Blind.
Yep, Seeing Blind, and we're on all the channels. All right, girl. I mean, we're on all the platforms. You can find us on your platform of choice. Yeah, you can catch more content there. For now, let's go ahead and wrap up today's conversation. I hope you enjoyed the discussion, my friends, and I look forward to having another chit chat with you, Carrie.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it, Cindy.
I know, I know. All right. I hope you all enjoyed it. Have a great day, guys.
Take care.
Be sure to follow Carrie On Accessibility and Cindy on Seeing Blind on their YouTube channels and all their socials.
When we share
what we see through
each other's eyes, we can then begin to bridge the gap
between the limited expectations and the realities
of blind abilities.
and the realities of blind abilities.